if I can get Marguerite Delbay to come to the table for item number 15, the governing body meeting schedule for November and December. And you'll be pleased to see that we finish up Friday the 13th. That's nothing to read into that. And we'll have the 3-year schedule that'll come on the 26th of November. But I'll move accordingly, seconded by Councillor Filipaina. And Marguerite, you might just like to talk to that schedule.
So through you, Mr. Chair. So we are in the process of developing a 3-year schedule, but we're in the process of taking back so analysing the feedback that you've all sent about your preferences for meeting times and meeting and the structure of the calendar, noting that some of you have noted the difficulty to organise certain meetings. And for instance, some of you have asked if we could move local board meetings, or which is not practical, although we can certainly let the local boards know what would work better for the governing body. So there's obviously a range of views which we will summarise, and we'll be working with you, Mr. Mayor, and your office, just to try and come to a compromise that we'll bring back. So in the meantime, the schedule that you've got in front of you, which Sandra has very ably developed, is just for the rest of the year. And she does note in the report that the pattern that you see here for the remaining of the year is not a sign of the pattern for next year. This is just there's no particular science in those 2 months. And we'll take all your feedback on board for next year.
Thanks, Marguerite. There has been discussion around the timing of our committee meetings. I've got to say there is no total consensus around that, and there is some reluctance on the part of many people referred to me personally that they don't want to meet into the evening when they have meetings, but we'll discuss that on the 26th of November and go through those points then. I was joking when I said we'd all be finished on the 13th. The formal meetings will be finished on the 13th. I know that many of us will have quite a lot of work to do between then and Christmas. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Just a quick question, Marguerite, and this is probably not the forum, but I'll raise it anyway, and that is to do with the form of workshops in the council's schedule during the election campaign. One of my opponents was certainly very critical of my apparent lack of willingness to open it up, workshops up to the public, as indeed happens with a number of local boards. She may have been receiving information from here, but as it turned out, that wasn't too fruitful. But I just asked then when that issue can be raised in amongst the other ones, because we have a little bit of a disconnect where local boards are having workshops open to the public and the governing body isn't. I know there'd be times when it wouldn't be appropriate, but I'm suspecting the times when there would be. So for consistency in the 2 arms of governance, I'm just wondering when that discussion can be held, because I would be supporting opening them up. No, incorrect.
Marguerite, comment on that. I think there probably are workshops that we could be public inclusive rather than exclusive, and there are others that have the opposite characteristics. But is that one of the proposals that we'd be looking at on the 26th?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is not something that we had envisaged. So we certainly wanting to be very clear about the purpose of workshops. This has been a piece of feedback that has been consistent about just being clear what the workshops are for and what kind of workshop it is, i.e. It could be just an information workshop where the level of detail that needs to be conveyed would make the general meeting very long, or it just gives you an opportunity to ask some questions. We're very clear that the workshops are not decision-making places. So so there can be information. There can be just open, free and frank discussions for staff to get some direction from you all about certain policy matters. And so those are, I think, would be changed if they were open to the public, because it just removes that free and frank aspect, which is quite important. Yeah.
So this is debate that was held, like I would say, without protracting matters, I guess, and not causing a revolution, Mr. Mayor. I'm just opening that up as something I'd like to put on the table to discuss and to maybe come to some pragmatic response that's in keeping with some of the other things that are happening in the organisation.
No, I think it's a fair matter to raise, and perhaps officers just could give a little more thought to that. As to, we generally work on the assumption that workshops are closed, but that might not always be justifiable. So maybe we could think on a case-by-case basis where actually it would be totally appropriate to have the public there, and there'll be other occasions equally where you want to have a free and frank, and a proposal or a suggestion that you might want to raise to see the debate around it, if it's in a public session, might be totally misinterpreted as a proposal that you're putting forward. So I just I think it's worth the discussion though, and there may be some more flexibility we could apply there. Okay, any further comments or questions on this? So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. The next two papers are information only. The decisions made under delegation during the election period, which are pretty self-evident. I'll move accordingly, and Councillor Casey has seconded. Councillor Darby, have you got a query?
Yes, there's something that's been signed off there. I was asked, as I think the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and myself under resolution were given authority to deal with these issues in that pre and possibly post-election period. And it was related to the Waitakere Rangers Golf Course licence, and my response to the staff, I just can't find the email now, but it is there. I said to the staff, I thought there was no urgency in signing that off. It had been hanging around for a long time. So I'm just wondering, my feedback was given. I was one of three that was delegated, the Mayor and the Deputy. I heard nothing else, and now I'm reading that it has been signed off with the Chief Executive's authorisation. It was something I actually made mention to Councillor Cooper as the then ward councillor and now the ward councillor, and I also mentioned it to the chair of the board out there and now a councillor, and both said, yeah, good call, we should treat that with that later on. So can someone explain the process that has arrived at this being signed off now, when my feedback, I don't know what the feedback of the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor were, because there was a clear process in place. I want to know how it was followed.
Is the agreement that we had that it was going to be deferred, but I wasn't paying much attention to the Waitakere Golf Course during the campaign, I've got to say. Can we come back to you on that, Councillor? I didn't personally look at it, so if we can come back to you on it, I think that's probably the best thing to do.
Well, we do need to come back, because I sort of made a promise to the then board chair and the councillors that, look, I didn't think it was a good move.
This is not the board.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not the board. Greg was, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I actually meant, I discussed it with you, Councillor Henderson.
Yeah. Okay, I've
Because
taken
this
the point.
is a very long lease. that's been signed up to now.
I don't know the answer to your question, and I'm not sure that the top table does either, which is interesting. And Councillor Henderson, you've got the same query, have you?
Yes, Councillor Darby stole my question a little bit. But I've, just to let you know, I've had a chat to the Waitakere Rangers Local Board Chair as well, who have no issue in principle with the lease, but also wanted to query why the hurry on that. Yeah. So we'll come back to that, I take it.
If I can ask Marguerite, are you the appropriate person, just to come back to us on that, and we'll get an answer. It's a fair question. Okay, so holding over the answer to that, the this is just a noting report in any case. Sorry, Councillor Newman has a comment.
Yeah, two things. I think it's a trifling one, but the reference to the attachments on B, it should be a national policy statement on urban development, not urban design. But so if that could just be adjusted. But with respect to the submission, I mean, I think the submission was quite a good one. My concern is, and it can't be addressed here, but maybe officers could advise on what happens next, and specifically what will happen in terms of a further engagement with central government around the very important matters that are addressed in the proposed NPS on urban development, which has very significant planning and consequential infrastructure implications, particularly if there is a desire to embark on substantial development in greenfields locations. So I note that this is a noting report of matters that were addressed during a certain period in time, but the policy implications of this are more significant than that, and I would like to have a further reflection with those departmental officials if that is an opportunity to do so, because I am concerned with the government the minister taking a decision around an NPS on urban development without fully understanding the infrastructure consequences to this council.
Okay. Any response on that, Marguerite? Is that's something that will come back to the committee on? It's a submission. I think you said, Councillor, you were happy with the submission, but there'll undoubtedly be further discussion in this area, which is pretty central to what we do as a council. But I'm not sure of the next time that it will come back. But we'll seek an answer for you on that.
I would presume whoever the principal was that was holding the pen on this submission will be in discussion with probably the Auckland Policy Office, which is drafting the advice on this NPS. I think that there is a need for a wider conversation beyond officers about the policy options that are forming the basis of the focus questions sent out by presumably whatever agency or agencies are asking us, and I think that there is a need for us to have a more considered engagement on it.
Now, just to get clarity around that's a submission that went to MB, is it? And there will then be consequential legislation determining what the nature of their proposals are, and we will be absolutely making submissions before the select committee on that one. So it will come back. This is, as I understand it, the initial discussion paper to MB, but that will then in turn be translated into legislation. Am I correct on that?
I don't know. It looks like it went to the Ministry for the Environment.
Okay. Let's come back to you on that. I don't know that I don't have an answer on it, and we'll try and get something more specific, because there will be an opportunity and the need to discuss the issues raised in that.
I'm not trying to debate the point, Your Worship. I think we agree, but the point being here, when you read the focus questions and what is trying to be achieved, as I understand it from the NPS, it in effect provides for a shelving of the objectives and policies of the RPS and the unitary plan, and the opportunity for a rewrite that within central government. And I think that's pretty totemic. So I wouldn't want to be waiting for a piece of legislation to be introduced for us to go to a select committee. I would be wanting to see the early draft of that legislation following the submissions that have been lodged, because I think that needs to be a piece of advice to ministers that is fully informed by the implications for our Auckland unitary plan, if indeed we were to do away with the rural urban boundary.
Yeah. Let's get some further information. Generally, we wouldn't be given the draft legislation before it was introduced, but if it's a work in progress, maybe they'll come back to us on it. I simply don't know the answer to the question, so if I can just ask Marguerite to come back and get more detail on it, so that we've got an idea of when we will have further input and when we establish council policy on that, which I understand the submission sets out a broad discussion of, but we'll need to be more specific about it, I suspect. Okay, I'll put that motion that we noted. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Item number 17 is a summary of information memorandum and briefings. So again, I'll move that. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Sayers. If there's no discussion on that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. There was no foreshadowing of extraordinary business, so I can thank councillors and close the meeting. And I think we have the next extraordinary meeting on the. It might not be the extraordinary. It might be the 26th of November. Thank you very much, and lunch will be at 12:30.